Welcome back to Hidden Power. Today's episode is a conversation with Bird Keeper Toby. If you're not familiar with his channel, he is a legacy Pokemon theorist and overall great guy. My name is Dusty Yogo. This is Soul Silver Art.
What's up?
And Lumios Post.
Hello.
Enjoy the conversation. Toby, thank you so much for being here with us. This is going to be a really fun conversation today. Let's start it off with some speed round questions, if you don't mind.
All right, okay.
Number one, what is your hidden power type? What is your hidden power type?
Ghost. For sure.
Ooh.
I don't know why Ghost, but we're going with Ghost.
Okay. So we have yet to really like define what the hidden power type or like what a good answer for this would actually be. Because it's like if it's a hidden power move, right? You would assume that maybe you have two other types. So like what would your two other types be?
Oh no. Why are you doing this to me? I thought this would be theory questions, and like I don't have a good answer for this.
I wouldn't know what to answer either.
I'll go something really quirky, like normal and dragon. I feel like that is that a combo that's been done? Did Drampa get normal?
Drampa. Yeah. That's sick. Yeah.
I like that.
I like
combo.
that.
It's a good combo.
Drampa with
and
the hidden
the
power.
Dunsparce should have been it.
It's true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. So what are your top 5 favorite Pokemon?
I prefer this question to what's your favorite Pokemon, by the way, because there are so many Pokemon I like.
Yeah.
Metagross, Snorlax, Espeon, Gliscod. Who did I like from this generation? There must have been some. Oh, yeah. Annihilate. There you go. I'll go with those for now.
That's good.
Ooh,
I didn't realize Metagross was on your your even top 10.
Me neither. That was surprising.
The thing is, people ask me, what's your favorite Pokemon, right? And for the longest time, it was like, it's Snorlax. Snorlax is the thing.
Yeah.
And then what would happen is, I would get so sick of being like shown Snorlax things and buying Snorlax things and making it my identity that eventually I fell out of love with Snorlax. So I keep my Metagross love really quiet so that I can just keep enjoying it, because I don't want to like. I want to get the thing where I burn out on it, you know? I think that'd be awful.
Yeah.
You got to keep some secrets for yourself. I don't even think Go-Goat's that good, so I can totally identify with that. That's cool.
I was going to say, you know
Oh
what?
my
Are you
gosh.
not worried about like what happens if you ever like stop liking Go-Goat?
I've got other mascots. I could do Sableye. There's like a hidden channel that I created.
Dusty, this is terrible.
There's a hidden channel that I created. It's called Rusty Scizor. I think that's way cool. That's way cooler.
Everyone call you Rusty.
You're gonna
then.
break some hearts.
Dusty's not even my real name. So, anyways.
I feel bad wearing this shirt now. I did it on purpose, but there it is.
Oh, no, I like the shirt. I do like this one. I still like Snorlax. I still like it a lot.
All right, what are your...
I wish I had known beforehand. I would have brought a Metagross shirt, and we could have just really, suffocated him with it.
At the end, I would just be like, I have no favorite Pokemon.
Actually, that's a good question. What is some of your least favorite Pokemon?
I mean, I hate to be basic and be like, oh, the Simisages, Pansages, like
that's
that.
What I was thinking of.
I hate to be like super basic. I get this weird thing about Servine as well. I think,
really?
Yeah, it's about its feet. It's got a weird like body proportions, and they upset me. I don't know why. And I hate to say it, Soul, but like. Tandem Mouse, I think, kind of sucks, and I know that's like your profile picture.
I understand.
I just don't like it. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But what I will say is a lot of the Scarlet Violet mons, I did a weekend replay with my lovely partner Phoebe this past weekend gone, and there's loads of Pokemon where I was like, I don't really like this, like Skeledirge was one of them, and then suddenly I'm finding them like growing on me now. I'm getting a second playthrough with some of them. I'm like, oh, actually Skeledirge is kind of cool, and like just falling in love with some of the new Pokemon.
Scovillain's one of those for me where I'm starting to like it a lot.
Yeah.
Now that we're like 3 months out, like there's a lot of Pokemon that are starting to pop up for me.
We got the official
what are your
artwork.
thoughts on Golden Go?
Yeah. Golden Go is even like really growing on me.
No.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts. I think it'd be really fun to do a run through though, and like aiming to get one quite quickly, because I think obviously it's such a it feels like
a challenge.
It's like a real collectible gimmick Pokemon. I don't know when I would ever organically get one in a run through, so I think it would be fun to do a run through with one as like an ace or something.
Yeah. So would you spend the first like 10 hours of the game just like farming Gimme Gold coins, or would you have it traded in?
I don't know. I think I'd farm the coins in the game. The whole point is exploration, so
Yeah,
probably would do. Oh, Clorf, I love Clorf. I like Clorf.
Yes.
It's very good Pokemon.
See,
you and Lumi.
I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
Wait, do you think other people don't like it? I thought it was like just unanimously popular. Is it not?
I have seen a ton of hate for it, including from these two jokers.
Yeah.
But
Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They got a Go-Go and a Tanda Mouse as their profile pictures. I don't know
exactly.
what authority they got. Like, no, Clorf is legit.
Right. I love them. Anger Shell is like such a cool ability. I mean, they baked in one of the like most competitive moves into a Pokemon. Everything about it, I just adore.
It really it does something because it's like the first boss of the game. You know, if you treat it that way, it really evokes that same kind of like Brock's Onyx imagery, where it's this kind of one stage at the time rock powerhouse that's like I don't know why I have that same connection with it, but also it's just got a brilliant cry, it's got a brilliant shiny, it's got like just I love the texture of it in the game. It's got so much going right for it.
I gotta
Shiny's
say,
really nice.
I gotta say that like what you just said makes me like it a little more. The whole like correlation to Brock's Onyx.
Oh yeah,
but the cry does the opposite. The cry for me, it sounds like like a dying cow or something. I'm just like, why? This crap sound like a cow.
For a Pokemon, that's pretty expressive.
It's not that bad. Yeah.
So are we saying that we're going to get a Steel type Cloth evolution in Gen 10?
Yo, that'd be
insane.
sick. That would actually
It
be
would
really
make
cool.
sense. It would make sense with the like.
Give it
hair
the metal
things look
coat.
just like it looks just like Sandy Shocks.
Yeah, right. You turn the little grass bits into Sandy Shock metal, and then you give it a metal shell over the top. I'd be well down for that. That sounds wicked.
Oh yeah,
Hey, if
I
they make
love
it
some
cooler,
Cloth love.
You know, if they make it cooler, I'm all in.
Yeah,
So
that would almost be like another take at the Yeti crab, right? Rather than having it be as ugly as Crabominable. It's just like a bunch of like little metal magnetic bits.
Sol, is your favorite Tanda Mouse then, or Mousehold?
No, it's not my favorite Pokemon.
Oh, okay, all right.
No, I loved it when I first saw it. So you probably know, but in that one like promotional video, they showed it like in the bottom corner or whatever. And I was just like, these little basic mice, they're so like just simple, minimalistic. I really like the look, and I loved it, so I put them on there. I'm like, this is my family. Little did I know they turn into a family when they evolve. So I mean, I actually don't love Mousehold as much because it's just more of the same. But Tandem Mouse, like the design itself, I enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, Soul. I respect your opinion. I don't understand
They're
it.
adorable. They're adorable.
I don't understand it at all.
I'm excited to see how
things
they're
that
going to
look
play
like
out in the
that.
anime. I think they have a lot of personality. I mean, the reason why people say they don't like them is because they're too simple. But like, there's tons of Pokemon. Like all of the Pokemon that are grouped together in a single Pokeball, or like considered to be one Pokemon, even though there's like multiple organisms. Like I feel like they are all very simple. Like even going as far back as like Execute. Or what about Voltorb? That's a singular Pokemon, but Voltorb is literally a ball.
Okay, but it's not just a ball; it's a Pokeball.
Yeah,
you know,
it gets
and, like,
a pass.
The whole thing with it being in the game, like you click a Pokeball, it might be an item, might be a Voltorb. You know, that's such a fun little thing about it. You know,
that is
it
true.
gives it more life than just weird little rat family.
Rat family. If they like tied their tails together, that'd have been pretty cool too.
Yeah,
I thought that's what they were gonna
like,
do. I thought they were gonna go like
yes.
Rat King direction and do that.
Yeah.
But maybe that would have been just you. Maybe that would have been too dark for Pokemon. I don't know. Maybe that would because Pokemon does some dark stuff, but does Pokemon really want you googling like Rat King and like have some kids like just be horrified? You know what I mean?
They've got
Not the
kids
kids.
googling dung beetles, right?
Yeah,
That's not dark.
Horrific.
It's
That's
disgusting.
not dark.
It's disgusting.
I mean,
That is
not
a thing
Shadow's
in
a
nature.
night
That is literally nature in the world.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but like, I mean, Marshadow's a night marcher.
Yeah,
You know, that's like, there's a lot of like spooky lore behind that.
Well,
you know?
it's true. It's true. Yeah, there are a lot of the ghost Pokemon. They like there can be some pretty deep origins, some pretty wild stuff. But yeah, I mean, but I think the difference is that the ghost Pokemon, all of that stuff and the stuff it's based on is clearly supernatural. Where obviously, like the Rat King, it's like that's just kind of messed up, and that can happen. If it can happen,
wait, it can happen.
Well, we looking at. I feel like the community, like I feel like Google searches for the Rat King kind of like increased straight after the announcement, and I still don't know if the consensus is that it is actually real or whether it's like an urban myth. So I still don't know.
I thought it was an urban myth. I think we should have, in Black 2 and White 2, when we got access to the Custodia sewers, they should have given us a Raticate evolution that was a Rat King. That would have been kind of cool.
But that would make sense because Raticate tails, I assume, come off quite easily. based on context clues. So they would just it would just be one Raticate with like 5 tails attached to its tail.
What are the context clues? Is there Pokedex evidence to suggest that their tails fall off?
Well, there's just Raticate tails are I guess sold in Team Rocket on the black market, I guess. But
I didn't even think of that.
And I don't know whether it's probably Slowpoke tails, but I'm sure there's some Alolan Pokedex entries talking about the deliciousness. I think that's Slowpoke tails. Yeah,
Slowpoke tails. But you're right. Tails, I think that is one of the passwords. It's the that's interesting. That's cool. Okay,
you can eat like claws and stuff now.
Tastes like
I
beef.
like that they've gone full in with that. There's no longer a question of, so do we eat Pokemon? They're just like, no, you eat Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like straight up.
For sure.
All right, let's move on to our last speed round question. What is your favorite Pokemon game?
What is your top 5 favorite Pokemon games?
No, you gotta make it easier for you. 3 at least.
Colosseum, Colosseum, Legends Arceus, Platinum, and Sapphire, but that's more, and Yellow. There you go. They're my top 5. But I'll admit that Yellow and Sapphire, is very nostalgia driven. In theory, I think Auras probably is just better than Ruby and Sapphire, and Emerald's probably better than Ruby and Sapphire. But my nostalgic attachment to Sapphire, and then Yellow as well. It's not the best Pokemon game in the world, but it's my first, so
that's understandable.
There's a lot of love there.
I think those Gen 3 games really stand on their own. I feel like the fact that they have like the pixel art of those older games are nostalgic, but it is its own artistic expression. I think when I play any sort of post X and Y game, there's a completely different feel that I get playing a Pokemon game. Maybe and it could be just the 3D, but it could also be features like the EXP share, right? And I think Sapphire is a very valid answer. I think you can.
It's the Battle Frontier.
I think Yellow version's super flawed. I think Yellow version, there's probably better versions of Kanto, but I think Sapphire, you're allowed to like Sapphire. I love Emerald.
Yeah.
And Ruby. Yeah.
Yellow, with the weird thing, I had a weird, I don't know if you guys know about this or saw this, I had a weird adverse reaction to Scarlet and Violet when it came out. In that I didn't super enjoy it, but I found literally in the week following, I sank about 40 hours into Pokemon Yellow, which is super strange for me. I wouldn't, I don't know why, it was just I need to go back. And I did, and I had a great time, and I was trying to play and complete the Pokedex as I went, and so I played 40 hours. I didn't get past Fuchsia, and I was just talking to every NPC and looking at everything, clicking everything, and just really re-immersing myself in that nostalgia. It was great. But I think Legends Arceus is a really big winner for me. I'm so fond of that game, and I hope we see more Legends games.
Yes.
And I think we will, but I've got a really strong hunch that we will. But yeah, Legends Arceus is just fantastic.
It is. That is, man. I probably wouldn't say it's my favorite Pokemon game, but solid respect for anyone who says that is, because honestly, it was. Man, I can't even speak to it, because it was just such it's one of those, there's that thing trending on Twitter right now where it's that moment in a fandom where you just had to be there. Legends Arceus is that that whole just
it didn't even feel real when that game came out the first time playing it. All of the hype met the reality met the hype, right? I was so excited for that. I'm is this actually going to be an open world game? And it wasn't, but is this actually going to feel like an open world game where it's seamless gameplay, overworld Pokemon, even stuff even just crafting. I really do miss that. I think that is something that should come back.
Well, I think given that, first of all, Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet came out all in the same year, which is wild. They're both being developed, side by side, I assume, as a promise for what will come in the future. Actually, I'm very, very excited, because if you combined the strengths of these two games, whoa, what a game that would be. And so I'm feeling really optimistic for the future of Pokemon, right? Regardless of what I feel about Scarlet and Violet, I feel super optimistic about the direction it's heading in, because you just take the best parts of those games, stitch them together. And I even said with, I was talking to Ron, True Green 7 recently, and I was saying, even if you took Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, there are a lot of things that in my mind that are wrong with that game. But if you took those out, which I think a lot of the problems lay with the original Diamond and Pearl anyway, like as a formula for future Pokemon games, whether that's Heart Gold Soul Silver, whether that's remakes of Black and White 2 or whatever, there's actually a lot of promise there as well. I'm a bit of a relentless optimist, so I'm quite excited about a lot of the changes we've seen over the last couple of years. I just hope that we can get where I want to go, sooner rather than later, I guess.
Yeah.
I like that they're trying to experiment. I love that they're trying to experiment. Yeah. I think that because the first 4 or 5 gens, it wasn't a lot of experimentation, and then they just got bolder and bolder, and I'm ready for our next Legends reveal moment. Like, our next time they reveal something and it presents, and we're just like, they're doing what?
Are you guys all feeling relatively optimistic sort of going forward at the moment?
I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm definitely optimistic. Sure. I think there was a lot of letdown with Scarlet and Violet because I think, doing podcasts, doing shows together, we think up like some pretty wild things. And then you kind of have to like ground yourself every once in a while and be like, all right, what could actually, just looking back, like it does make sense that Scarlet and Violet wasn't actually a combination of all the best things that are great about Legends and all the best things that, were good about Scarlet and Violet. I'm actually hoping now that the next game, Gen 10, could actually be a fuse of these two things. But at the same time, I also don't think, I kind of actually like the idea of Legends just being its own vein of
branding,
games, right? Because I have friends in real life, friends that I grew up with who love Pokemon. That's like my real life Pokemon friend, and he hates Legends Arceus. He does not play it. He just doesn't like it because he wants that turn based RPG game, right?
Fair enough.
And I think that's its own thing. And then I think also Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and like BDSP, those are really like approachable games. I got like friends now who come up to me and they're like, what Pokemon game should I get? I got a Switch. And I'm like, okay, well, what kind of game do you enjoy? Because that's really going to determine which game that you should actually play.
Pokemon has kind of been doing this, I guess, jack of all trades, master of none strategy over the Switch's lifespan, where, Let's Go, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Sword and Shield, Legends Arceus, Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Snap. There's been like a million other stuff. There's Unite. There's every Mystery Dungeon DX. There's like so much available on the Switch. And I'm expecting more still over the next 2 or 3 years before Nintendo moves on to whatever they move on to next. And it's like, if there is a Pokemon game that if they continue to fuse elements, which is what I'm seeing, even in like the Pokemon design in Scarlet and Violet, like I think the textures and everything is so much closer to like new Pokemon Snap, where I think they look really great. If we continue to see them just kind of fuse ideas and stitch them together, we're in for a really good like 30th anniversary Gen 10. So I'm like, I'm stoked for the future.
It's a little tricky because it's like how optimistic do you want to be? Because I feel like I was having these conversations offline 10 years ago, with like with when 3D Pokemon really started.
I think it's just because we're kind of optimists in this whole idea. I agree with Toby 100%. Like I think it's going to be epic towards there. But then you also have to ground yourself, like you were saying, Dusty. Like when we were talking about everything that was coming in Gen 9, we're just like, all right, but remember who we're talking about and all of that, and we got what we got. I enjoyed it.
But. Yeah, it's really hard because like I remember in the run up to Scarlet and Violet, the emotions were like you'd watch a trailer and then you watch like the English trailer versus the Japanese trailer, and you'd look at the quality different and you go, what does this mean? I think it means we're going to get the Japanese one and this is another, but why would they advertise like that? And then what is there still room for change? And it was kind of like this real up and down, like, oh, I don't know if it looks that good, maybe it looks good. Am I just swallowing some copium to try? Okay. And then the next sort of trailer would come out, and I think it was the trailer right before release where they first showed Iron Treads and Great Tusk, and I was like, this is it, we're coming home, it's gonna be like the best Pokemon experience. And then I started playing a game and I wasn't so fond, and it was just this real roller coaster of and then but part of the reason you're not so fond on initial release can be any number of things, whether that's like patches not super available right away, or whether that's just like the like you've overhyped yourself, which is a common thing for me. Like I'd rather get myself excited than spend my whole year going, it's going to be rubbish. And then, I'd rather do that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, keeping yourself in check is like really important. And certainly if you've got like an audience, like keeping, letting them know, like, let's be cautiously optimistic. Don't, because, you don't want anyone to be disappointed, I guess.
I get that. I like that you pointed that out. It really was a big roller coaster, Scarlet and Violet. Like, I found myself upon, I guess a little bit different from you, I found myself when the games came out, I was like, this is the greatest game ever. Like, playing through it, and I mean, the whole plot, once you get to Area Zero, oh my gosh, like, incredible. And then, now I'm at the point where, like, I just completed the National Dex this past week, and I'm on my game, and I kind of went, now what? I don't know what to do.
It almost feels like the creation, the whole post game. Would you call that post game? All of Area Zero kind of felt like it was built by like a completely different team, at least story team. And then it makes me think like, okay, like if we get DLC, right?
When we get DLC.
Yeah, when we get DLC. Is that going to be
Toby's on the level?
Like, is the Area Zero storyline, was that just like a taste, a sample, an introduction of what we're actually going to see in DLC? And that's how the story's actually going to play out? Pokemon has always like played pretty close, kept their cards pretty close, and like just kept things like, traditional, right? There's all these like patterns that we talk about. And it makes sense. It's a huge company. But it felt like they actually took some risks, but then also like, they're not even risks. Just like, it's like they actually implemented fun story. Right at the end of the game, it was like this wide open game, and then it gets like real narrow at the end, but in a good way.
Yeah, I think a design of a game like that is almost specifically to entice you to think about, I hope there's more of this. Like, where's the DLC? When can I pay for it? I think one of the things that I'm a little bit, I guess, sad about is that like Eternatus is a main part of Sword and Shield. Clearly, in my opinion, there is story missing from this, which they're going to want to release to us later. But now we have to pay for it. Whereas before, it was like, here's Sword and Shield, it's a self-contained thing, but plus Isle of Armor, Crown Tundra. Whereas now it's more, a little bit more like, here's Scarlet Violet, and here's the rest of Scarlet and Violet. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this.
I totally agree. I remember that was a whole thing with Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra. Is people literally said like, because we were in that phase where you had a ton of hate following like the National Dex thing and all, and so you had people who were going, they're making us pay for DLC. They're just locking a second part of the game behind a paywall, and it's like, that wasn't the case. Those stories were so self-contained, but I have found myself thinking the same thing. Like, kind of looks like Scarlet and Violet's like plot, like they're literally giving us these huge breadcrumbs for what's to come in DLC. I mean, we've seen 3 of the Pokemon that's going to be in DLC in books in this game,
and that's so deliberate. Like, they showed us that on purpose. Right? They did not need to show us that.
Absolutely.
I have the counter argument to this already, though.
Okay.
So here's the thing, though. When you think about it, this might help you. We have always had this. Sword and Shield was actually the only one that changed it, because before we had the 3rd version, and you never had anything about the 3rd legendary or what was to come in the future that they left hints to in the previous game, the main game. It all came in the 3rd games. So it's kind of the same thing. They didn't really change that much. I think in Sword and Shield is when they actually did. And I sympathize, because I love Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. Like, I love that they were separate stories and that they had their own legendaries, all of that. It was great. But this is like attached. It feels like just like, what would it be called? Scarlet, Violet, and I don't know. Gold, not gold. A different version that is coming out. You know what I mean?
I do agree with that. I think, yeah, it's difficult, because actually I had the reverse complaint when the Crown Tundra came out, which is, but the story doesn't really tie in to like the main story. And now my complaint is, but now we have to pay to see the rest of the story. And I think I'm looking for that in between where I suppose with Scarlet and Violet, it did feel like a rounded out enough story that, like, if I didn't play the DLC, I still definitely got the full picture. It's just, which I suppose is the ideal. I guess we can't really know, because we're speculating about a DLC that hasn't been announced, we don't know is going to happen, and about the contents of that DLC, which we don't know. It's just, we've all been playing. We've been around the block. We know,
yeah,
we kind of get the feeling. But we could be wrong. Who knows? If tomorrow they announce like the like Aqua version. Imagine. Anything's possible.
We were talking about our next Legends moment. Maybe we get it on Pokemon Day.
Well, so that's something else we could talk about. Like, I mean, we're talking about like what could we're jumping ahead to like Generation 10, but like what are these in between games in Generation 9 gonna look like? Toby, you've got some videos about a Johto remake.
Yeah.
Do you want to lay that down?
Sure. Yeah. To me, so Pokemon have been hit with a lot of criticism with Scarlet and Violet about the production cycle of the game and to whether the games are ready to be shipped. I think they're going to take that's been taken to heart. There is also this looming presence of the next Nintendo console. Obviously, the people at Pokemon probably are a lot more clued in than the general public is as to what that's going to be, whether they're still developing on the same hardware the same way. But historically, when for example, when like the DS transition happened, or when the 3DS transition happened, Black and White and Black and White 2 was still coming out, I think, Black and White 2 after the 3DS came out.
Yeah.
And,
I think so.
and Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon were coming out after the Switch was already out. And this is just to give Pokemon some breathing time to get used to the new console. My suspicion is right now, Pokemon has a big focus on the 30th anniversary, Generation 10, and whatever the new Switch console is. I think these things are probably going to collide and coincide. And so they need stuff now to fill up the time in between. This is where projects like the Ilka Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, at the end of the day, regardless of the reception, they sold really well. So the idea of them recovering like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, totally possible. Or Black and White and Black and White 2. But I actually think Black and White and Black and White 2 will be pushed to post Gen 10 because if this is Gen 5, that's Gen 10, it's, halfway through Pokemon Cycle. It kind of makes sense to marry those ideas.
A Gen 2 remake is really like it's an in-between kind of game,
right?
And we're not getting a Gen 4 remake, Gen 5 remake 3 years apart. That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And I think with Gen 2 in particular, there's enough there to carry the 2000s nostalgia of Pokemon. There's enough there to get people buzzed. And it's like just chronologically, like it's the next region that hasn't been visited in a long time. With all that in mind, people love Legends. A Legends Johto game that reuses many of the assets that they've already built for Legends Arceus, because Sinnoh and Johto are the two regions that are the most alike in their
I'm dreaming about this as you say it. It feels like I can literally see and play, like I'm playing the game in my mind.
It just makes sense to me that, like, if you're the dev team and you're like, look, guys, we're going to work really hard on this Gen 10 thing. We've got to make it land. We've got some DLC for this year. We got Ilka's working on something. We got to get something out just to fill that yearly cycle because we've got to keep making money. And we've been doing really good at that. Let's just reuse, like Majora's Mask style to Ocarina of Time. Let's just reuse the assets we have for Legends Arceus. People love that game. And build Legends Arceus 2, which is effectively the Johto version of that. You've already sprinkled in the seeds with Commander Kamado and his backstory, the crafting of Pokeballs. We also are in a position where every single box art legendary set has a Mega Evolution or a Primal Reversion or some additional form apart from Ho-Oh and Lugia. So you've got that. And I don't even think it'd be Legends Celebi. I actually think it'd be Legends Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is like just a little bit more iconic, and I think you slap that on the box. It's a Legends Johto. It's set in Ecruteak City. That's your hub town. It writes itself.
They could also.
It's the region for it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I think they could also do like. They didn't do this with Legends, but they could give us two different versions, right? We get the Ho-Oh version, Lugia version, and basically the story is still tied up in the time travel of Celebi, which explains why. Maybe we're in the past. I think that is probably the most obvious thing where it's still like in the past.
Oh, go on.
No. It's good.
Well, I was going to say the dream extension to this game, though, is actually that it is set, because obviously Sinnoh's is set in a time when it was called Hisui, that this is instead set in a time when Johto and Kanto were still as one. And because all you're doing, and you're like, that sounds far too big. All you're doing, because it's a Legends game, and you got your Jubilife Village in your 5 areas, all you're doing is you got your Critique City and your 10 areas or 7 areas. A couple of them Kanto, a couple of them Johto. That's it.
And they can market a Kanto game.
Work,
why would they not want to do that?
I mean, they could even make it Legends Mew or something.
They could if they do that.
I know it's unorthodox, but that's like the whole idea of these Legends games is they're completely unorthodox. I would want to see, and I'm not just saying this because of the podcast, I would like to see Legends Unknown. I think that would be really neat.
Yeah.
Not a legendary, but a Pokemon with a ton of mystery, lore, and frankly, I mean, we know it from the anime, a ton of power to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I always saw them as hands of Arceus. Obviously, we know Arceus is one hand of the true form of Arceus that we've never seen.
Would tie into Arceus really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They said Volo would return.
But also,
Laventon said he would return.
You've got the Sinjo ruins, which are directly referenced in Legends Arceus.
Yeah.
I think there is just I think with many things, like even with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I think they left the breadcrumbs in place for the opportunity of a Let's Go Johto, for example. It just so happens that there's not really a need for that anymore. The world isn't playing Pokemon Go as much as they were back then, and actually there's this Legends IP that's really, really good. I think they sprinkled those seeds into Legends Arceus to do what, which is to give themselves choice and option. We all make videos, we all make content and posts talking about like, oh, look at all of the references to this in this game and this in this game. And it's not unintentional, regardless of whether it comes out right or wrong in the end. That's just the developers at Game Freak sowing seeds and giving themselves options for production. Because, of course, at the end of the day, they don't know how well the game's going to sell until it hits shelves. Typically, it always sells really, really well. And I just think that they do another Legends game. Let's say they give us another of the Johto, Unova, and Alola starters with new forms. Well, then we're all sitting there going, oh my goodness, there's going to be another one of these. There's going to be a third one, and it will be set in Unova, and, or it'll be Hoenn or Unova or whatever.
If you're enjoying this show, just $5 helps us out so much. Right below this video, there's a join button. You can click it and become a channel member.
And more importantly, we have merch. Seriously, I'm about to, when we're done recording this ad, I'm trying to speed up this ad so I can go and buy my own merch, which is really lame, but also, it's super cool, and
it's not lame.
Cool.
I'm gonna be wearing
amazing.
I'm gonna be wearing a hat. I'm gonna be wearing a t-shirt. I'm also gonna have a hoodie. I'm gonna have a Hidden Power hoodie.
I'm gonna get that too then.
Yeah, Soul's gonna get
sure.
one.
I want a mug. I want to put my Snapple in a Hidden Power mug.
I like that. I'm gonna be drinking coffee in a Hidden Power mug.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense than Snapple.
That's like, what is this, plastic?
It's bad for the environment. Get a mug. Save the turtle.
There you go.
Soul Silver Army. Grab your merch.
Listen to Lumi. Get some of our stuff. It's really good stuff, guys.
Your support will allow us to continue making Hidden Power videos for the rest of the year. Thank you guys so much. And now back to the video. To just jump 3 steps down the line. What if Gen 10's in is that midsection of Japan, right? Gen 10 is based on that midsection of Japan, and then we get a Legends game based on that new region.
That'd be weird. That'd be wild.
That would be cool.
Just to see,
yes, that'd be neat.
Because something I kind of miss about the third versions is that you get to kind of see a different angle, a different perspective of a similar, a familiar region, at least a new region.
So if Legends, Ho-Oh, Lugia, whatever it may be, if it was set in a combined version of Johto and Kanto, would we want the name to be Tojo, or will we want the name of the region to be Indigo?
It's gotta be Tojo.
I love that.
What?
Yeah.
What is Tojo?
I mean, Tojo Falls.
There's a Tojo Falls in the middle. Yeah.
Right.
100% would be Tojo.
But
then it could be Indigo too, because they share the Indigo Plateau.
I also Indigo, and you could have obviously Mount Silver is an area in between the two that has so much, obviously it's pretty underdeveloped in terms of the lore, but now you can give it some lore.
How about this?
Right. Yes.
You have Mount Silver, right? Silver, snow. There's snow at the top of the mountain. It's cold. It's Lugia. Then you got on the other side the volcano, right? You get the volcano. That's fire. That's Rebirth.
Yeah.
Ho-Oh, Phoenix. That could be it right there. And then Ho-Oh is what you see in Kanto, right? Ho-Oh is the Pokemon that you see in the very first anime episode.
See, but if they took Lugia out of Whirl Islands, I'd be offended.
No,
that's where he belongs.
It would, yeah, that's true.
There won't be. It wouldn't be in the future.
we're going to the future here. It doesn't have to be. Or the past,
it couldn't be in the Whirl Islands, because at that time, well, it depends when they said it, but in theory the tower hasn't burned down. But there's actually, originally, Ho-Oh's tower, I believe, was actually in Goldenrod. It's which is why it's called Goldenrod. It's golden because of the Ho-Oh, but it's also the radio tower was built over a pre-existing tower that predates the Tuanek critique. And there's the clear bell can be found in there, the Suicune bell in Crystal or whatever, is given to you by the game director or the radio director, and he's like, yo, we found this when building the radio tower.
Very cool.
It was under the rubber. And it's like a really cool bit of lore that I haven't been able to stitch into any theory yet, because I'm like, it doesn't make enough sense. There's like not enough there. It's a bit of a shame.
If I may, they tie, there's like this long running thing, and depending on the origin of Paradox Pokemon, they may just totally throw this theory out the window. But, there's that whole theory of Suicune, Entei, and Raikou being revived forms of, the evolutions, the first ones. And so, in Goldenrod, not only would that have been the original Tower of Ho-Oh, but that's also where you get Eevee.
It is. With Bill.
Could be a meta way of them telling us.
Could be.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You got it from Bill, and Bill's mum is a kimono lady, and they're an ancient order. Goes way back.
That is like the one theory that like I need them to like just tell us it's true. I love that theory so much.
The Eevee one?
Yes. The Eevees being the like original forms of the legendary beast. I mean, I do, again, like if we're to assume that, and Toby, you just did a huge video on it with our friend Espy, but like, if we are to assume that they are past, then unfortunately it seems like, maybe that's not the case, because we see the past form of Suicune, Raikou, and Entei. Would we assume that one, if that is the past form of Suicune, Raikou, and Entei, would we assume that only one of them died, and Ho-Oh revived it in 3 parts, or 3 of that Pokemon died?
I still don't even think Ho-Oh actually did any of this. I think Ho-Oh, they just looked at Ho-Oh, saw it, and was like, Ho-Oh did it.
That is like boring of an answer, though. I don't like that.
There's more lore. Well, the unknown. There's more lore tying to the unknown. In Crystal, there's the dialogue about, like, one of the sages is like, yo, the unknown is connected to Suicune, and Suicune's like their leader. And now you've got all of this, like, the crystal lore with, like, it's got a giant crystal on its head, and every, terastallizing, and there seems to be beings potentially making other Pokemon out of crystals. And I think that the legendary beast creation we see in the Scarlet Book and Raikou, Entei, and Suicune are only tangentially created. I don't think it's a case that creature died in the tower and became Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. But there is always something that's bothered me, which is that Raikou, Entei, and Suicune exist in other regions of the Pokemon world. They're not one-ofs.
Right.
So
that is true, yeah.
They can't all have the, like, it's not like they were just all in this one tower. And so that really, like, I'm still not 100% sure how to reconcile that consistently.
How long ago was the tower burning and the original Pokemon dying?
About 150 years ago.
Okay, then I was trying to think maybe like there was reproduction, they just spread out, because we know like Suicune travels across the world, but like I don't know if 150 years is enough to account for them being in like almost every region.
Additionally, like the weird quirk of it is that most games that have Raikou, Entei, Suicune have a Ho-Oh, and most games that have Moltres, Zapdos, Articuno have a Lugia or reference a Lugia. So those sets always seem to exist together across the Pokemon games where they appear. It's just kind of a weird thing. I think the exception is maybe Platinum has the legendary birds but no Lugia. But I might be wrong. I'd need to check that. It's been a few years since I looked at that.
The birds are in X and Y as well.
Yes, but we have the Sea Spirit's Den, which is obviously a direct Lugia reference, suggesting that Lugia was there at some point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where is that?
I think
the Sea Spirit's Den?
That's
Azure Bay.
It's Azure Bay. It's the part of the map that is the closest to where Galar would be. So it's like it's effectively the English Channel. And that's interesting because on the other side of that channel, you have the Crown Tundra, where Galarian, Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno come back there every sort of 10 years. So, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I love this, by the way. Oh, go on.
This is good.
No, good. I love that you love it. I was just gonna say, hate to be the one to say like it could all just be like multiverse stuff, but
it can all just be
multiverse
stuff.
Yeah,
it can all just be multiverse
makes sense.
stuff.
Like it's just a different
universe.
universe.
You had to be the one to say that too, Soul.
Yeah, I don't like that like explanation, but it's very
I sort of wish
that
Pokemon didn't. It was really cool at first in ORAS when they were like multiple dimensions, and I'm like, oh nice. Yeah. So now there's an explanation, but what it sort of robs
can of worms.
you of is it's a whole can of worms, because now it's like any theory where it's like, oh, we can have fun stitching this together and putting together pieces. The answer probably now just is different universe, and that's it's a shame.
But I have always appreciated, Toby, that your videos, in your theories, you'll actually reference various different sources, or like what we would consider like a different universe. Like you'll blend anime, manga, games, and whatever else, right? You'll blend those together to try to find an answer. Because I guess it's like if you don't have anything else to reference, that is a source of official canon in some capacity.
I hated doing that when I started. When I was started, I was like, I am not crossing canons, not doing it. Doesn't make sense. Then the multiverse opened up, and it was like, well, actually, in theory, you know, when Ash Ketchum leaves Pallet Town and Red leaves Pallet Town and the kid from Let's Go leaves Pallet Town, like the same general sequence of events are still happening. So while you can't use it as concrete, like, aha, here you go, here's the evidence, I think you can still use it as like if it happened in one universe, there's a good chance it happened in another universe.
Sure.
But how much weight you put on that is really up to you as a viewer or as a player, and where you want to put it in your headcanon.
And then what about like Pokemon Masters? Is that fun? Do you play that?
I used to a lot. I used to really enjoy like just collecting the characters and like reading their stories, and like I didn't like battle with them. I just liked unlocking characters and reading the dialogue, because the DNA team, they went deep. They were like, like Agatha's got some manga lore and she's got some like video game lore, and they're just like snipping stuff together, and I'm like, cool. I love you guys so much.
Yeah.
The thing I hate the most about the whole multiverse thing is I feel like maybe I'm really not super involved with like other video game communities, so I don't know if this is a video game fan thing or if this is a Pokemon fan thing, but Pokemon fans do this thing where when there is a pattern or something, they marry that, and that is it. So like in every single, video
we do that too
on Scarlet
for the record.
We are Pokemon
I'm a Pokemon fan. I do it. I am not an exception to that rule, but like I know, like I did a bunch of theories on like Roaring Moon and it being like related to Mega Salamence.
I loved that video. I love that video.
Oh, thank you.
It's like,
thank you.
Yeah.
But like you have people commenting, well, that can't be true because Mega Salamence is in the Mega timeline, Scarlet and Violet aren't. And it's like, how is that the case if Roaring Moon references Mega Evolution in its text entry? And they're like, well, it says that came from a dubious magazine. It's like, no.
Oh, so the dubious
disc
it's
connected to that
Porygon.
is the part that's dubious, not the part about Mega Evolution. It's just
this frustrates me as well. Because I get that comment a lot, like, oh, but the Mega timeline, and it's like,
right.
Okay, first of all, you mean Mega timelines? Because it's an infinite multiverse. So there are an infinite amount of Mega timelines, and there's an infinite amount of non-Mega timelines, and so some of them, we still don't know enough about where Paldea is set to say whether it does or doesn't exist in a world where Mega Evolution exists, but actually the evidence seems to point that it does exist in a world where Mega Evolution exists. So I'm on board with you there, but I really like that video. For sure.
Thank you.
That was good.
I appreciate that. It's cool hearing that from the master of the theories,
Oh, hardly.
Other than the Reggie Dark thing, you dropped the ball there, man.
That's what I was going to bring up next. Speaking of multiverses, there probably is a multiverse. There's where Reggie Dark is a thing. I just watched that video today.
Maybe you'll get it in Scarlet and Violet DLC.
I asked when I was working with Kotlol, the editor, on that lovely gem. I said, look, there's this bit in the video where I say, you're wrong, you're absolutely wrong. Because I knew making the video that the chances that it was actually going to be a dark type was quite, like, it's a dragon head. But I thought that, you know, I don't mind being wrong on the internet. Like, if I minded that, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So, like, I just thought, well, that'd be fun. People can then post that back at me later. And that is exactly what happened. So I was happy with that. And also, it just got the moment it was announced as Dragon, huge influx of views and comments of just people going, you're wrong. And I love it. I think it's great fun. But what I love about that theory is that there is genuinely enough evidence there to suggest that it might in fact be a dark type, regardless of what actually happened. Obviously, it was wrong, but I get that. But there was enough evidence there to suggest it. It told a convincing story. Some people, lots of people in the chat, you know, oh yeah, I see that. I actually genuinely did believe it. I was like, it is a giant dragon head, but on the other hand, Pokemon have done stranger things, and like, yeah, no, I see, you know, like, Gyarados is a dragon. Charizard's a dragon. They're not dragon. You know what I mean?
So true.
So I was...
And Gyarados becomes dark type.
Yeah,
Mega evolves, right?
That's true.
That could be some evidence right there.
I must say, you did kind of, you did, like, I remember watching that video. It's funny, it was long before I ever even thought about, you know, making Lumiose post. I was just Zach, watcher of Pokemon videos. But, and I remember watching that and actually kind of going, like, it's totally dragon. But what if it isn't? You know, like, you made me think. It was a very good argument. Like, that is just something that I've always kind of, that's why I made Dusty put it in our little, you know, format above us.
I love it
because I was like, it's just so iconic. Like, that was such a, because it, not because you just randomly said it's dark, but because you had a really good case for why it was dark type.
And even though it's not dark type, I still think the Dark Ages Enlightenment era, I think that part of the theory still holds up.
Definitely.
Right? Like,
so I was going to say, like, I absolutely, I'm in love with this, and there feels like there's been a bit of a renaissance when it comes to, like, Pokemon theories with this latest generation. And obviously, would you all consider yourself... I mean, Lumiose, you're a Pokemon theorist for sure. You definitely do that. Would you guys... Sol and Dusty, would you also consider yourselves Pokemon theorists? Like,
definitely.
It depends on how you define
and what does that
theory.
mean for you? Yeah, no, I'm interested.
Sol can go first.
Yeah, so I didn't start off thinking that that's what I would be doing, but that's just what ended up happening. I basically make theories, though, off of, like, rumors and leaks, though. So, so I'll get, like, just a little piece of something that we haven't heard yet. You know, like, I'm not as much well-versed, let's say, in the games, lore-wise. I know a lot of lore, but not nearly as much as you or even...
Yeah, yours are more like, correct me if I'm wrong, yours are more sort of predictions based on the leaks and the info that's coming out early as to what we're gonna get, right?
Right. Yeah, but also just like in the world of Pokemon as well, not just like the games. Like I'm so much more about like the actual Pokemon themselves than the games. Like I'm not so crazy about like video games in general. But yeah, so...
Well, you do a lot of beta Pokemon connections, too. Like, I remember you were, like, one of the first people I saw to say, like, Bellebolt was a remake of, like, the beta Politoed. And then you talked about... I've seen you talk about Bombardier being a, you know, kind of remake of that initial Stork beta Pokemon we had from... I think that was also Gen 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a very, very special place in my heart for beta Pokemon. They're... amazing to me.
Did you?
I wish we had them all.
Go on.
No.
Did you all think we were going to get the beta Arceus in Legends Arceus?
100%.
No,
yeah.
I did not think that, but I wish.
Thought they would. I didn't think we would get it, but I kind of was, like, and maybe I was just really, really hoping that, like, we would get. You know how, like, the very first scene in Legends Arceus is like Arceus talking to you. I think it would have been cool if just in those scenes he's in that form. But then, like, when you actually catch him, that's kind of what I thought they might do.
That would have been nice. It's the actual form of Arceus, and then it even keeps some mystery there, right? You're like, what is this entity that's talking to me?
Yeah.
Right? Even if you didn't know what Arceus was.
Totally. Yeah, so...
I think, there's a lot of really cool beta Pokemon that I'd love to see return. I'll answer your question, Toby, and then we can move on to some beta Pokemon, because we've listed out some things. Some of them even... Anyways... So I use the word theory for like kind of SEO. That's what like people. I think it's easy for people to understand what that is. But I'm like Sol. I love getting into and playing Pokemon, and like I feel like I grew up watching YouTube videos just absorbing the theories, the trivial facts. So while part of my brain operates like that, I also I feel like I also don't like take the time to sit down and try to like make broader connections. I think your videos, Toby, are so effective. Lumi, even you, I guess all of you, right? You. All of you guys are so effective at like being like this is the theory, this is my idea. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the evidence, right? Counterpoint 1, 2, 3. What do you guys think? Like, I think you guys are really good storytellers in that way, and I personally don't take the time to do that. I do a lot of like min-maxing with my time, right? I'm like, if I'm going to produce this video and spend a day and a half making a video, I want it to perform well, to grow the channel, bring in a little bit of income, grow my brand, make some new connections. It hurts me to make videos that don't perform well. It really does. But it's
the business side.
I know, and it's and I am aware of that, and I sometimes feel a little guilty for even using the word theory, because theory to me, yeah, it's like what you and Lumi do is definitely what I consider to be theories.
But
right?
You do though. I have to stop you there and just say, like, you connect dots like a lot. You make your own theories like on the spot kind of thing. You might not put a lot of like crazy thought and research into
and your
it,
Twitter
you just, like,
is
go.
certainly filled with theories
Twitter,
or trolling. Theories are
that's
trolling.
all speculation.
I mean,
it's speculation, right? Like, I'm not sitting down like.
In fairness, give yourself some credit. You sometimes base it in like legit stuff. Like you will sometimes. Yeah. It's not all the time. I mean, sometimes he'll just randomly put like Gen 10, we're going to the moon, like something crazy like that.
That would be cool to do.
Sometimes he does put something that's like because of this.
I can't speak for all Pokemon theorists, but I promise you the sanctity of what isn't a Pokemon theory is not something well guarded by the community. Like, there are bigger problems in the world. You make whatever kind of videos you like, and if you use the word theory, that's fine.
All right, good. That's good. I feel like I just got to pass. That's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. My Twitter page is mostly just like, if I'm, I'll be on a walk and I go, oh, that'd be kind of cool if that would happen. And there's no evidence. It's just like, that's a cool idea. And then that's what I end up tweeting, and then that's what it gets, and then that idea ends up in one of like our podcast episodes as well.
But then all that takes is
and then you have people like sending you death threats because they're like, "Don't act like you know anything."
Yeah, or people DM me, strangers, or they'll respond to me. It's actually sick when I say something that's like kind of just BS. It's just like a fun idea, no evidence. Someone responds and they go, "Oh, actually, but there's a connection here." And then someone else responds, and then they start going with something, and so it is kind of fun.
That is what you're gonna get. Like, sometimes if I've been sat on like some kind of little nugget of like, there's nowhere near a full video here, and I just can't do anything with it. Sometimes the right thing to do is just to like put it out to the community and go, anyone got any ideas? And sometimes nothing. But sometimes people come up with stuff, and they're just like, well, yeah, because in the manga this, and I haven't read a lot of the manga, so whoa, oh my goodness, suddenly we've got a connection, and actually if we can start fusing that and that, we can start kind of putting some bits together and making an interesting story.
That's the beautiful thing about it too, for sure, is because like, I mean, that's how like actual scientists craft their own thoughts. They'll say one scientist will discover this, or even like historians, archaeologists, they'll discover this, then another guy takes that and using his own knowledge he says, well, maybe it was because of this, and they kind of build a world off of that, and that's what we're doing, and I think that is really cool. I love when the community gets involved. Like, I remember with my whole Mega Evolution Paradox video, like, I remember someone put in the comments, because basically the whole thing is just Mega Evolution's pulling from latent ancestral DNA in the Pokemon, and someone commented, like, also Mega Evolution's symbol is the DNA helix, and I felt like I was so happy they put that, because I was like, how did I miss that? Like, it's literally right there when you Mega Evolve.
Yeah. That's like gutting as well, though. Sometimes you make a video and you put a lot of work into it, and then someone puts in a bit of evidence that you're like, that would have sold it. That would have really just made that magic. Yeah, but you're right.
I just pinned the comment and just was like, thanks, guy.
This is like kind of the secret of what I do as well. Like, I wouldn't be anywhere without the community. Like, I don't know half the stuff that I'm talking about, and they send me things all the time. Like, my DMs are just like always popping off with like, hey, what about this theory? What about this theory? There's so many Pokemon theorists out there that are incredible, and they just send them to me, and I'm like, whoa, like, this person came up with this, and this is incredible. It all ties in. That's how
you and I even met, Sol. We met because like you did like all kinds of leaks and stuff, and then I came across some inside information. And I didn't know who to share it with. I was like, Soul Silver Art, he's always posted stuff like that, and that's how we met.
Yeah, it's fun. I love the community. I wouldn't be anywhere without them. It's great.
So let's talk about some non-canon Pokemon that could be brought into the Pokemon games. Toby, again, we talked about some of these already, but Crystal Onyx, I think that is something that like felt like it actually could be real, and I'll cross my fingers for Scarlet and Violet DLC. I feel like that could have been real this gen with Terastallization.
Yeah. I still struggle with the fact that emotionally at night. I keep myself up thinking about how they didn't make it in Alolan form. Like, so much of Alola is like inspired by the Orange Islands, and even the idea of like regional variants kind of started there. The idea that they didn't make an Ice-type Onix back then boggles my mind. And then now with Crystal Pokemon, I'm like, really? So it's kind of an odd one to me that they still haven't utilized it. But I do think, given enough time and given enough regional variations, it'll happen. I really do.
The thing is, they've like retconned a lot of things from the anime, right? Like giant Pokemon. There's like that mysterious Pokemon that ended up being like a Mega Gyarados, right? There's been a lot of retcons. And I feel like Crystal Onyx is a fan favorite. I don't know if they're like just holding off on it.
I think that's what's so interesting about Crystal Onyx is that one. I mean, it's this one. Basically, correct me if I'm wrong. Nothing important happens in that episode. It's a filler episode.
Yeah.
And
it's
yet,
an epic episode.
It is so iconic. Like, everyone knows Crystal Onyx.
That
I've
cool
seen plenty
Charmeleon.
of people who do not care about the anime who knows about Crystal Onyx. There's tons of other, kind of, I guess, non-official Pokemon, if you will, in the anime that appear or in the manga or all sorts of media. But Crystal Onyx is like the one. It's the poster child for it.
Mm-hmm. Like, what are they waiting for? Honestly, they could make it a Paradox. That'd be kind of dope. Although that wouldn't make sense, right? Because then you got the Crystalline, the Diamond from Mega Steelix, and we've seen Megas, the elements of Mega Pokemon. That
could just be Mega Crystal. I don't know.
We have talked about, like, we've talked about before on the podcast how DLC could be an expansion of Area Zero. And, they make a point in Glamora's Dex entry to say Glamora is very similar to Terra Crystals. So perhaps we could get a regional Onyx in DLC or a Paradox that is like, it's taken on this form because it's deep in Area Zero, so it's been like hyper exposed to these Terra Crystals.
But
that'd be so neat.
That would be sick,
so
but
cool.
I feel like that wouldn't make sense in the Kanto region.
Well, that would be the job, is to like, how do I make that video? Like, how do I explain its presence in Kanto? And I would find
just
something.
give us that, and we'll have Toby take care of the details. A month after.
That'd be funny. Can you imagine that?
If there ever,
yeah,
if there ever was a generation that it should exist, it should be this one. Like, they should at least just put it in the game so that we can terastallize it and make it so it's crystal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the time.
Right, I do, and it was left out.
Onyx is.
And I think that's so funny. It was left out, and it was the generation where it should have been in.
I'm gonna throw you one more. There's the Pinkin Pokemon. That's another one that I think is explained by the food, but I feel like Pinkin Pokemon. I could see it being like a Pokeblock, right? Like, you give it to your Pokemon. There's a slight variation in maybe their color. Yeah.
I think the interesting topic of discussion there is not how does it happen, because they answered that, but so are we to assume that Ash's Butterfree's girlfriend, if you will, came from that island?
It has to be.
True.
Because that's not the
is a good
shiny.
question.
The shiny is different.
Right.
I think they're probably in a slightly more committed relationship than boyfriend girlfriend. But yeah, I see your point.
That's true. Yeah,
I think.
I didn't want to put a label on it.
I don't know what labels Butterfree is. But I agree, though. I think if they introduce that, it would be a subsection of Pokemon that can, when exposed to this food, turns pink. No one knows why. It's just like a certain kind of Pokeblock or berry or whatever. And I think the reason for that is like the idea of giving 1,000 Pokemon. By the way, there's the pink version, which also for Pokemon that are already pink just is super underwhelming. But if that happens, then Butterfree is absolutely number one on that list. Like, they need to canonize it that way. But I could certainly imagine there being like half a dozen Pokemon that as well as their shiny form and regular form, they have a temporary pink form. And that's just like sellable.
It doesn't even need to be pink. I guess I just like the idea of like another shiny version. That's always been something that I've thought about. So
a temporary shiny based on whether it's had this particular food in the last like 2 days or whatever.
Or an additional, cool. Something
that
like
would be cool.
I think about how like, Gen 3 introduced abilities, and then in Gen 5 they kind of found a way to give older Pokemon the newer abilities, or maybe even a different ability by doing hidden abilities. And I've always thought like shiny Pokemon need that, because like we have the classic ones where people complain about them, like Garchomp and Gengar, where like there's no difference. So we need like another version of shinies. I remember maybe y'all remember what generation it was. I think it was Gen 8. There was a lot of rumors of there being an ultra shiny that would be introduced.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because like that term was trademarked or something, but it was like a TCG thing.
Yeah.
But, and I remember, and like we kind of got it because we got like the squares versus stars, but like that's not enough. I want a palette change.
Okay, let's talk about Shadow Pokemon. Shadow Pokemon is something that was originally introduced in one of your favorite games, Toby. You said it was your top 5 Pokemon game. Coliseum. That honestly, I should have said it at the top of the show. That's honestly kind of a shock to me, because that game is nostalgic for me. I remember playing that game a lot when I was homesick, but playing it as an adult, it's not that fun. So maybe we can talk.
Never played it.
I'd like to get your take on Coliseum, and then we can get into Shadow Pokemon.
I disagree that it's not that fun. I think double battles. I'm genuinely amazed that double battles are not the standard throughout the franchise. Like, I think
me too.
They are far more fun and interesting. I think that the dynamics at play are wild. It really challenges you to think. I remember the first battle that you do against the guy with the Entei in that game, and he's got Golem, and he's got Matang, and he's got Pokemon with Levitate, and Pokemon that are flying, and Earthquake, and it's all relatively simple stuff, like Protect, Earthquake, Levitate, Flying, whatever. But just watching your opponent do that in the game as a kid really teaches you to consider, like, should I be protecting? Should I switch into a flying Pokemon? How do I navigate this? And there are plenty of other examples of that throughout the game. But Shadow Pokemon, I'm really happy to see they've showed a continued interest in it. Shadow Pokemon have actually never disappeared. They have, and I've talked about this in a super video last year where I was just like going in everything Shadow. But you have Dark Pokemon in the TCG. You got Shadow Mewtwo and Pokken. There's the Celebi and the Shadow Balls, the Dark Balls in the 4th movie. There's the Argas that's used in Detective Pikachu that's derived from Mewtwo. There's the Berserk gene that's in Gen 2 that they get again from Mewtwo. In fact, the backstory is that even in the Colosseum and Gale of Darkness games, Team Rocket is really sort of pulling the strings, and that creating Mewtwo is a mechanism to take its genes and to produce something that can cause Pokemon to lose access to their heart but become stronger. We see that in the anime with Professor Namba has his Rage Crowns, which like do that exact same thing. They like confuse the Pokemon, shut off the door to the heart, but make them somehow stronger. We get it in the 20th anniversary movie with Ho-Oh and the Shadow Rainbow Wing that turns all the local Pokemon like really ragey and angsty. Pokemon Go has Team Rocket with Shadow Pokemon. It just does, like, and they just keep on bringing them back year after year. So I fully think that Shadow Pokemon are going to continue, even now with the Black Terror Raid Dens, where the Pokemon are like somehow stronger. They're elevated past the level of, like, it's not just that they're level 100, it's that they're stronger. They're the mightiest version.
That's a really good point.
Is there something about those raid stones making them shadowy or making them corrupted?
Wow.
The lore's deep on Shadow Pokemon, and they are like one of my favorite things in the whole franchise to talk about.
I need to play Colosseum then. I've never played Colosseum.
I think it's great fun, but maybe I'm just nostalgia blind to it, which is totally fair. Yeah,
I do like it.
Generation was that?
I think it's
was
worth
Generation
playing.
3?
Generation 3, yeah. I think it's worth playing.
That's why I came in late Generation 3.
It's just very slow. Like, the gameplay of the game is really slow, like Gen 4. And then also you have this, like, massive limitation of what Pokemon you can use. And then the whole purifying thing is, like, also extremely frustrating. But it is... So, like, I'm really talking about replay, right?
Sure.
That's, But I think, Lumi, definitely, if you lived close to me, you could take my GameCube.
Yeah,
I got a copy.
Oh,
for
it was
you
on the GameCube.
if
Okay,
you're ever in
that's
town.
why I never had a GameCube.
Oh
if
my
I'm
gosh.
ever, 8 hours away from where I live and I'm near Dusty, then
Do you have a Nintendo Wii?
I did have a Wii. Yes.
Okay, you can play it on the Wii if you get another one. They're quite cheap.
Do they?
Yeah.
How would I get it on the Wii? Because I have a Wii.
No,
So
you can just play GameCube games on the Wii.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
A Nintendo Wii is just a
Wow.
GameCube with extra bits.
I did not know this. I didn't know that at all.
I
So
swear,
it's like the 3DS to the
it's got
DS.
Game Boy ports. It's got controller ports at the top for the game.
Look,
for the GameCube.
I haven't touched that thing in forever. I have no idea.
What do you guys make of kind of shadow Pokemon? And do we like them? Do we want them back? Do we want them to see more? Or
I like them.
I really wish
think
that they
they're
would
neat.
do more with them. Like Shadow Lugia, that's what I need. I need like something a little bit more different about them than just like red eyes, or because then we're in alpha land even with that. Yeah, that's my feeling on them. I mean, it goes back to the same thing as like the pink Pokemon. They're like just pink Pokemon.
I
just a
like
little
the
more.
moral debate that they pose in the Pokemon world. Like, it's they make them stronger, but at what cost? I like that, and I think that would be a really cool, like, mainline game to kind of focus around that. I would love that.
Well, I was gonna say it's kind of like Mega Evolution is like a similar thing to that. In that, like, the Pokedex entries talk about how much anguish it causes the Pokemon, but we never meet a faction in Pokemon that are like, you should not Mega Evolve your Pokemon because it causes them pain and that kind of thing. Like, it's still very much encouraged that you Mega Evolve your Pokemon, which is really interesting. I see Shadow Pokemon. There's like an alternative version, which is Light Pokemon, which we again see in the TCG. And all of them have abilities that they get benefits from being around other Pokemon, and like they boost basically the power of friendship. And so this translates into the games with the like the friendship mechanics that allow you to survive critical hits and to do things that your Pokemon wouldn't normally be able to do, to dig deep and find an inner strength of friendship. And I guess the ultimate version of this would be like the Ash Greninja, which we've obviously only seen. If Shadow Pokemon, we've only seen like 2 pure Shadow Pokemon in Lugia and Mewtwo, then we've only seen 1 pure hero Pokemon or light Pokemon.
That's cool.
And so I guess it's like a really rare phenomenon to find the deep power. But in theory, I guess any Pokemon could be either. And I suppose Shadow Pokemon are easier to cultivate from the point of view of a business group like Team Rocket than, say, light Pokemon are, because that requires work and friendship and going on long journeys, and they don't have time for that. They got to make money. So here's a Rage Crown, I guess is the thinking. I don't know.
I really like that crossover. They honestly, Shadow Pokemon Megas, they do line up very nicely. You have these few you have these like few like one-off cases. I do see. I guess if they were to ever bring Shadow into the game, back into the main series, maybe that's when they would also bring back Megas, and they kind of like reinterpret what what you're saying, like what Megas actually are.
Yeah, I saw someone on the comment section of my Mega video like said maybe there is no Mega timeline or non-Mega timeline, and just some regions ban Mega Evolution use because they think it's cruel. And I like that idea. I think that's kind of neat.
It's interesting because there are like Shadow Megas which appear, I mean, in Pokemon, but also they appear in the Magearna movie.
The Volcanium movie?
The Volcanium movie, that's right, sorry, yeah.
There was also, they like to do Shadow Pokemon like in general in the movies. You have the Shadow Mega Evolutions, you have you mentioned the Shadow Rainbow Wing from Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then wasn't there something along the lines of that in the Hoopa movie? Wasn't like when Hoopa was unbound, he's basically like a Shadow Pokemon?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
In I've seen that one.
In the Pokemon universe, what is our understanding of like auras, right? Could Shadow Pokemon really be like an evil aura? Right?
I think it is. It's a corruption of their aura. Is like I think that's right.
Comparing it to Ash Greninja being a light, like that's probably Ash Greninja. I think it's through aura, because I mean he like Ash communicates with his Lucario in that same little space, if you will, as he does his Greninja.
Oh, let me ask you this. We just talked about this fusion Pokemon. Do you think that ever has a chance to be put into the game as like a main gimmick?
Not as a main gimmick, but I could definitely see a spin-off or a side or a subset of Pokemon. Like in many ways, Paradoxes, I guess, are testing that a little bit. I don't think we would see that commonly. Like, I'm not expecting to see Yu-Gi-Oh! Polymerization. Here's like any two Pokemon you like, turning them into something. I think it would have huge limitations if they did it.
It would be like a Gigantamax.
Do you hate the idea though? I feel like you hate the idea. I see it on your face.
I don't like the idea. I've been very vocal about how I do not like the idea. I think it's cheap. I think it's
I think it could be really creative.
I say that, and then if they did it, like if Gen 10 they're like fusions, I'll be like, okay, but I mean until then I'm gonna say it's cheap.
So we have like Gigantamax. This is the thing I always go back to, right? Like, you imagine a Snorlax, right? You like Snorlax, and then any food Pokemon, and then like the it's like one of those funny, cute fusion ultra forms where the Snorlax is like eating the Pokemon. But they come together though.
Snorlax and Alchemy, and suddenly it's a Snorlax with like two faces on its hand in giant pools of whipped cream.
Yeah, so that's like the funny version. Then there's like the basic version where you have like where something like Calyrex, right? Those rider forms. That's very basic. And then you can go the other way where maybe there's a few one-offs where you have like
Venustoise.
They're gonna fuse Pikachu and Charizard.
Venustoise,
They're gonna fuse Pikachu and Charizard.
Yeah, the Blastoise, Venustoise from the anime. I remember what I was going to say, which is with Mega Evolution and with like it's supposed to be because you've got a bond with your trainer, right? So it's only like a trusted bond. Maybe that's what like negates the pain of Mega Evolution because you've got a trusted bond or something. I don't know. But it's interesting that Mewtwo is, given what I've just sort of been talking about Shadow Pokemon stuff, Mewtwo in the Genesect movie is the only Pokemon that can kind of Mega Evolve itself, as if it's both the trainer and the person, and there are hints that Mewtwo's part human. But then also in that, like, because this version of Mewtwo has a deep inner peace that other versions don't, it's just able to like turn into that. That was less of a point than I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
No, but it's interesting. And Latios in the Hoopa movie, weren't they able to Mega Evolve on their own? I genuinely can't remember.
I don't know. Maybe? Yeah, I guess.
Because I know they Mega Evolved, but I don't remember if they had a stone or not.
It could have to do with the Psychic type, honestly.
Yeah, it could have to do with the Psychic type. That's good.
Could do.
Because they're like always like way more advanced mentally, obviously.
Right, so it's like a Zen thing,
Toby, do you have any theories that have been disproven that you still believe?
Any theories that have been disproven that I still believe?
Because sometimes companies will come out and they'll like give canonical responses to things that kind of like...
I think to illustrate what he's talking about, a good example is how they said that Dynamax was just a projection. But like if you pay attention, that clearly is not the case. At least in the anime, it is not a projection.
These are
I can't think of anything.
Questions.
The wheels are turning, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, certainly predictions I've made have turned out to be wrong, and that's absolutely fine. Yeah. But I don't know about theories that I've made that are just disproven because, there's nothing I can think of. Are there any theories of mine that you've noticed that you're like pretty sure that one doesn't check out anymore?
He has to have
that. I'd be interested to hear.
No, I don't really. I mean, I think you make a lot of good points. There's a lot of great theories that are out there, and even if they are disproven, sometimes it's nice to live in the ignorance and be like, I liked this one better.
This is not a theory you did, but and this might just make you disconnect and like block all of us.
Oh yeah, okay, go on.
No, I firmly believe that the flipped calendar and Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Let's Go was a hint towards Galar.
It doesn't even look like it. It doesn't even look like it. It doesn't even make sense. So, for those of you who are listening who doesn't know what he's talking about here, you're talking about the calendar that people said before Sword and Shield got announced that if you flip it, it looks kind of like the UK, and therefore the next region was going to be the UK. And the next region did happen to be the UK, but it's not because of the calendar wasn't a reference. It didn't look like it. It didn't even look like Galar. I disagree. You're right. I'm going to disconnect. This makes me unreasonably angry.
I found his break.
So, were you gonna? I feel like you were gonna say something. Did you have a thought? Maybe.
I'll always believe until proven otherwise. Crystal Onyx is ice type. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it shown to resist water moves? So wouldn't that make it more like a water type?
Wasn't it? It was weak to fire, right?
Yeah, it's weak to fire and it lives in water.
Okay.
So we don't actually. I don't think it's shown to.
I thought it resisted because I thought. I mean, it's been ages since I've seen the episode, but I thought like Ash sent out Squirtle to try to fight it, and like it actually resisted the water moves, and that's why he switched to fire.
That sounds familiar.
I'm not sure. I don't remember. Right. It wasn't Ash who battled it. It was the glass maker had his Charmeleon.
Okay. Well, I thought someone used a water move on. I don't know. I'm gonna rewatch this episode.
They probably did. They probably did because it's like traditionally a ground type. Okay, so this is the question I was gonna ask you. Doesn't even matter when. Gen 10, Gen 11, Gen 12, whatever. Right? We're gonna be grandparents. Doesn't matter. When they introduce a new type, what new type do you think Pokemon actually needs to introduce?
When they introduce a new type. Okay.
It will happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean the two common ones that people talk about are like Cosmic and Sound.
I've seen a lot of Light too.
Huh?
I've seen a lot of Light type too.
Light type.
I think that's
been around since like Gen 3.
I don't like it. But like, people saying Solrock would be like people said Sylveon was going to be a new Light type.
Yes. I think Light gets too equally covered by like Psychic and Fairy, and I think Cosmic Pokemon are typically Psychic type, and so like just because you could rebrand them, I don't know necessarily. Like that's quite a lot of Pokemon getting rebranded, and typically like when Fairy was introduced, it was only a handful. Same with Steel and Dark. I don't think any were. So I've always preferred the idea of Sound, just because there are only a few Pokemon that feel like absolute obvious picks, whether that's Exploud and Noivern and like a couple of the others, maybe Meloetta. There are certainly other Pokemon that could fit into that category, but I think those are the ones, and we've already got a couple moves that feel like they would work. So I've always liked Sound. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you've got your attributes, and there's fire, water, wind. Well, that's all an earth. They're all covered by types already, really. And then there's light and dark, but there's a kind of archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh called Chaos, which is usually a combination of light and dark monsters. And I wonder if we could see something a little bit more like that, where it's not quite a fairy, and it's not quite a ghost, and it's not quite a dark Pokemon, and it's something in between. But Sound is certainly the one that I like the sounds of the most. What about you guys?
That is really interesting.
What would they do with Noivern if Sound?
Chaos.
Sound would be my pick, but with Noivern, it's an issue of it's dragon flying, so there isn't really an obvious. You think they'd change it to Dragon Sound?
Yeah, bye-bye.
Because I think with correct me if I'm wrong, but with the Fairy type Pokemon, the only typing they replaced with Fairy was a lot of cases like a Azumarill. It was just added on.
Mm-hmm.
It became Water to Water Fairy. But I think they only replaced the normal typing with Fairy. Like Jigglypuff actually added it, but Clefairy replaced normal with Fairy. But like,
which was weird that they did it. It was weird that they did that for Jigglypuff and not for Clefairy. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
Well,
know,
it kind of makes
why
sense now with Screamtail. With Screamtail, it kind of makes sense now to me. Like I think of it as like Screamtail is Fairy Psychic, and because of domestication, it became normal in a similar way to how Cyclizar is.
Wait, do you think of the Paradox Pokemon as like being kind of factual and biological as part of like the ancestor to all the Pokemon of that species?
He does for now.
I would say this is where I'm at. I think that they very well may have been imagined, but I think they are imagined off of a very, I guess, logical idea. Like, I think that there is an idea of what these Pokemon's ancestors looked like, and that they were imagined from that. So, like, it is still, while Screamtail is not exactly, it's kind of like, the way we depict T-Rexes and stuff. We depict them as these big, scaly monsters, but, like, now we're finding they actually may have had feathers. And we also, we predict their colors, but we actually have no evidence
idea
of what color they were. That's kind of how I see it.
Interesting.
I guess,
okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I will admit, I am just desperately holding on to the idea of ancestors and descendants just because I want that to be it. You know, I think that's so much more interesting than just, oh, I imagined it and now it's real.
I agree, but I also think there is enough evidence to suggest that they are created. I don't think they were like created by Sada and Churro when they made the time machine 10 years ago. Like, I still think the time machine is a time machine, but I think the way it operates is that it travels within a range of, I don't know how far forward, but far backwards at maximum 3,000 years. But I think, you know, certainly the 2,000 year window that the Empire started. So I think the Paradox Pokemon have been down there for that long, but they're a paradox. They exist because people think about them and know of them and write about them, and are they fact, are they fiction, how does it work? And then as Sada and Churro use the time machine, they sort of exist because they exist, and then they're sent back in time later. I think Kayla did a video on this quite recently, which I agreed with the first half. She talks about this, and I'm like, yep, that's how that works out, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I watched your video on it you did with SB, and I mean, I loved that explanation of it too. I still, like I said, I want to hold on to the hope that it's at least based in what the actual descendants could have looked like. But, you know, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm not, just because I love that idea so much. But, like, I loved how y'all not only explained it to, excuse my southern, I said y'all. Not only did you explain, like, you know, how it could be created, but you explained how it's a paradox and it's a perfect loop with no beginning. I love that. I thought that was so good. I love that so
Time
much.
will tell. We'll see for sure. I mean, that's certainly a theory that could be disproved as DLC comes out and lands, because I actually put a lot of stake in that video as like okay, like this is all true. This is how the DLC is going to go. So depending, you know, like if they announce no DLC, or if they announce DLC, but it's
can you imagine?
Entirely different. Yeah, it's like, that's definitely one that could be disproved.
I mean, we'll find out. I'm sure that we'll find out if it's right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta have that. If they don't answer what the heck these things are, that's going to be for me in the franchise. They kind of did,
though, in a way. You know, like, I understand what you're saying, Lumi, like, that it's bittersweet in the end, because people want, like, we want our past and future forms, but also they're Paradox Pokemon, so they're not exactly past and future forms. So we have to, like, somehow figure that out. But they did in Scarlet and Violet, they left it as their past and future forms, basically, that are a little strange.
I love that, like, that lore there with like, I mean, you know, Toby, one of the things you're like really, really well known for is your, you know, tree of evolution. That's those kinds of topics that might be my favorite kind of topic in Pokemon, is like how they evolved, and like, oh, these things actually share a common ancestor in this, and this actually might have evolved from this. I love that so much. That kind of, I don't know what you'd call that genre of theory, but I love that genre of theory.
Me too, actually. That's like part of like some of the early videos that I was watching were people tying together like Zubat and Aerodactyl, and it was like, oh my goodness, this is like blowing my mind how these things actually are very, very similar. And I'd watch other theories and stuff, and when I started making the Tree of Evolution, I was like, I really want to lean on community theories rather than the biology of it, because actually, first of all, they're Pokemon, they're not animals. And second of all, I think those ideas are really fun. So I think on the earliest versions of the tree, I have Aerodactyl like next to Zubat or next to Crobat. And over time, I've kind of given in more to like, okay, like I'll kind of make it more, try and make it a little bit more biologically accurate.
Slurpuff is next to Growlithe, stuff like that.
Yes. Well, then actually not that one.
Are they not?
Because there's now a whole subsection of Pokemon that seem to be made up of edible goods. So I'm like, they kind of like Slurpuff and what's it called from the latest
Fido.
Fido's Evo. Like that they've got to be related. They have to be related. They're confectionery dogs. And so like that's like a whole branch of the evolutionary tree. But the question is, are they dogs or are they if you think of
they're mystical
them as
creatures
being
that
like
look
plant matter or whatever. And there are some Pokemon that just like you could give me 5 answers and they would all be right. Like Electivire is a Pokemon that if you said it was a gorilla or a yeti or a cat, you're right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's an Electivire. Like Slacking, if you choose gorilla or you choose sloth, you're right. It's a Pokemon. It's both. It doesn't, you know. So you just choose whichever one you want. You know.
Yeah, I think that's why I did like a video on Roaring Moon and Mega Salamence was all spanning from my love of that kind of genre, and then like one of the first things I did when I started my channel last year, and it probably doesn't even this video probably doesn't even have 1,000 views, but it was huge at that time. When you've got like 50 subs, a video with even 100 subs is a huge win. You doubled or 100 views. It's a huge win. You doubled the amount of people. But like the biggest one then was one on how Hisui and Zorua evolved, and like I proposed that there was actually something before Hisui and Zorua that then became Hisui and Zorua, and then later became Zorua. And I wish I had like my notes on it and I could go into it, but I love that genre of theory. Like that's always my favorite theories I've done are on that.
I love that. There's a thing in Alola that Alolan Vulpix had is known by a different name locally to the people of Alola, which is Kyo,
right? Yeah.
And like Alolan Vulpix and Ninetales and Hisui and Zorua and Zoroark aren't totally dissimilar in their origins, and even just on the surface level, that they're kind of mystical foxes of the snow. And so maybe there was some common ancestor between modern day Alolan Vulpix and Hisui and Zorua that is known as Kyo, and we just don't know that much about it.
There we go.
Who knows?
Look, we bridged the theories.
Yeah.
There we go.
Toby, one last question. What do you think about convergent Pokemon?
I like them. I think it's odd to me that there are so few in the generation where they're officially introducing this kind of new concept.
So
but I don't. Yeah, I like them. I think I prefer regional forms, but I'm not sure I could articulate why, because actually they're not that different really, other than in name. They're effectively the same thing. Just what I mean.
I think what you and Lumi are talking about, like the whole like, I think it's easier to wrap your brain around a regional form. It's easier to understand. You move a Pokemon, it changes. Convergent Pokemon are strange. I think what we've been discussing is that they've released so few to really just test the water and just test the reception of them before kind of diving in. I mean, even with the regional forms, they only give us maybe like, I guess they gave us a pretty good amount of families.
They gave us a good bit in Alola.
Yeah, but they were all Kanto, so
right.
Before
really so were they.
Well, they were all pretty basic too. Like Diglett they gave some hair. Muck they gave like pretty much just a color change. Like I think the Galar ones and certainly the Hisui ones, there was kind of more depth to the changes they made to them. I'm a big fan of the convergence. I hope that they make more. I'm with you, Toby. I don't know why there were only 2. I feel like they should have been more. I love that the names are just a little play off of the original names.
They're similar enough.
Wugtrio. I love that.
Yeah, I think in concept it's pretty genius. I hope they branch out a lot with them. It'd be interesting to see.
Hopefully we get like one is like the poster child for DLC in a similar way to how Galarian Slowpoke was like the poster child for Isle of Armor.
I was actually going to tweet. Okay,
here we go.
What if?
There's a theory brewing.
Because this is the thing, right? And this is where theorizing through leaks actually, I think, has gotten might have gotten us all into trouble, right? Because we don't know that the Suicune and Virizion are Paradox versions. We don't know that. But you
can infer that very easily.
You're right. That's inferred, and that would have been inferred by the people that leaked the game. However, what if they're Convergent Evolution?
Interesting.
What we've had another concept introduced this game. What if they're regional variants somehow? Yeah. We don't know enough to say one way or the other. They probably are Paradox Pokemon. They probably are. But it would be interesting to find out if they were in fact somehow convergent or something.
I'm trying to think of what it says on their their book pages, because I feel like
all it says is they're imagined.
Does it not heavily suggest that they're more paradox-like, or
I would say they
are drawn by Heath's sketch artist, based on the artist feeling inspired by the Pokemon that they saw down there. And I think the reason that that's going to be important is if those Pokemon turn out to be real, then we have a definitive connection between people's ability to imagine something and the reality of and then becoming real. However, we also know that when Heath went down, Heath ended up with documents that appeared to be written by him that he doesn't remember writing. And so it could also be the case that if people can lose their knowledge, that maybe these Pokemon really were seen down there. So we don't know for sure. We don't know whether they're paradox Pokemon or not. I'm 90% sure they probably are, but yeah, it's just heavily inferred, I guess.
Yes.
Don't know for sure.
Yeah, that is neat. I do like that idea. I do also think it'd be cool if they, I don't know, somehow tied convergence to paradoxes. I don't know. I think it's weird that both have not been explained in full. I mean, in fact, convergence, that's a fan term. They treat Wiglet and Wugtrio no different than they treat Tandemaus. You know, like it's a new Pokemon. They make a comment in its Dex entry about being similar to Wiglet, but like where regional forms have their own classifications, these don't.
They made I think Wiglet's Dex entry or Wugtrio's talk about how it was originally thought to be a regional form, which is just simply to illustrate that they look similar. But yeah,
I mean, it's a different Pokemon. It's not a form.
It's not a form. It's
That's why they don't explain it. Right? If it was a form, they would say, this is a form. This is a subcategory. But it's literally just a brand new Pokemon.
You have something?
I was going to say that, I was going to pose this question to Twitter, but just what do you expect for the DLC, if we're getting DLC, to have like...
when?
Like regional forms? Will it have regional forms, do you think, anymore?
Yeah.
You
do? Because
I
think at least one. Slowpoke did Slowbro and Slowking.
Yeah.
Well, they also had Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos. I mean,
I feel like they'll do one more convergent instead of a regional form. Like, so they give us the convergence and then a few paradoxes. They could do. I'm just saying, like, the question in my mind is, like, are they going to give us all of those things? You know, like the regional forms and the convergence and the paradoxes, all of them.
Yeah. It won't be loads. If they've got lots of cool ideas, they'll want to save them. Like, I mean, I think what was Isla to Armor and Crown Tundra was Slowpoke, Slowbro, Slowking, the 3 birds, Urshifu's 2 forms, Cubfu, 2 Reggies, 2 horses, and a Calyrex. So that's like 15, I think, different things. It's quite a reasonable amount, to be fair. I wonder... Yeah, I think if we're expecting, the Disc Legendary and then these 2 Pokemon in the book, that still does leave us. So if they do a similar amount, that still does leave us a lot of range for like what could get announced, hopefully at the end of this month.
Yeah. I'd wonder if there'd be more new paradoxes instead. Like, what I'd like to see is, one thing that's special about Cubfu, not exclusive to it, but special about it, was a Pokemon that evolves, and it's a legendary that evolves, and that was kind of something really cool about it. I'd love to see a paradox Pokemon
that evolves.
That would be really neat. Like, it's like that we're given, like Cubfu was given to us in Isle of Armor. I would love that.
I'm wondering if they're going to canonize AZ's Floette. I think there is a lot of room right now for that to happen, just based on the kind of the lore and, like, the discussion around Kalos and, like, whether we're going, whether we're not, whether we're seeing parts of it, whether we're seeing little bits. I think we probably are going to see, like, Terminus Cave and an extended southern Kalos area that ties up some of the lore, but I might be wrong. Whether they'll even call it Kalos or whether they'll just call it the North, the north of the region. But I do wonder if there's the potential room for AZ's Floette to get canonized. We sort of saw that with the original Color Magina, with Pokemon Home's release, so we know they're not totally, like, against doing that kind of thing years later.
The thing with Floette's like pretty much the same. AZ's Floette is pretty much the same as just your traditional Floette. I wonder if the flower is really the one in question. Maybe the flower that it holds is related to Urban Mystica.
I think it's different enough. Like it's no more or similar than a Screamtail is to a Jigglypuff. You know, I think there's enough enough difference there to make it its own thing. There's also
you have
like
to look at more than design. You know, it also has a significant stat boost. It can evolve.
It does, yeah, that's true.
It has that signature move. What is it? Light of Ruin.
That's true about the stat boost. Like they gave it a stat boost, but you can't even use it.
I think the only thing that stops it being a paradox form is if they give it the name Eternal Flower, like, you know, Sandy Shocks or whatever. I think it's like one character too many. I saw in Game Boy Luke's video or someone's video mentioned it. Maybe it was one of yours, Dusty. So that is like the only reason that it might not be. But what would be so interesting, and this is where like I start getting the cogs turning, is if they do canonize it. There is the same flower for AZ's flower appears in Oras in Sutopolis City. There's like a little next to the tree in the center, and so it's like, okay, well, hang on. We've already talked about how like Mega Evolution and this are in the same world. Now we've got Mega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and we get this little thing. Like, how does that tie together? So I'd be on that so quickly. That is like that's my jam. But I can't make that video until AZ's Floette, you know. Gets announced if it does.
Well, I mean, yeah, it might. AZ's Floette, if it is in, DLC, I imagine they would actually reveal that ahead of DLC's release. I mean, because they revealed most of their cards for DLC. The only Pokemon that weren't revealed, correct me if I'm wrong, were just Calyrex and Spectrier.
Calyrex
like ahead of time.
Yo.
Or not Calyrex, I meant Glastrier and Spectrier.
They could call it Eternal Herba. And I think that makes it one letter shorter and ties it in better. Nice. Doesn't it? I'm like sitting here like trying to...
Eternal yeah.
If they called it...
the character limit?
Well, I think it's one too many with flower. So, FL... I'm dyslexic.
Oh, it could be Eternal Fleur, like the French word for flower.
Oh, yeah. That would be good.
They easily, like... I mean, that's such a small retcon to make that, like, it wouldn't be hard. And I think... Based on my beliefs on how the Great Creator came about and like the Kalos connections,
it's like a religion.
It really would make sense. Yeah, but then beliefs. there's that one Mrs. Rifle 1 million years ago crater. Grumble. But yeah.
Well, Toby, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I don't know if you guys have any other questions for Toby, but.
I mean, not a question, but it's surreal to have you here. It's an honor to have you on this.
Dude,
honestly,
thank you.
It's great to meet you and great to talk with you, and very, very grateful that you came on.
No, Absolutely, it's great to talk to you guys. I've been following all of your works for the longest time. I mean, it's all with Twitter. Like, literally, I don't know how many times I went onto Twitter last year, literally just to refresh to see if you had posted something, because I'm interested in your takes, like genuinely. And yeah, like I said, Lumius, like I really liked your video on the Mega Evolution. I was like, oh man, that's like a classic theory. I got really excited about it. And Dusty, you're also here, so that's fine.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That's why these guys are here. These guys are here. Yeah. Thank you so much, Toby. Toby, you have any you want to plug yourself?
Oh, I'm BirdKeeperToby on everything, and if you like Pokemon theories, I got them.
Links will be in the description. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.